Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Let's talk about literature. Book haul, book haul, book haul. Well, not really a book haul. I didn't just get these, but first time you're seeing them. So let's talk about literature that we can give our middle schooler and our high schoolers. So I'll talk about each of these books, tell you what I think, and hopefully you'll like it and you'll bring it within your library. So let's first talk about this 3-book series by Kwame Alexander. These books will be awesome for your middle schooler. I'm going to say your 6th grader, maybe 7th grader. 7th grader all the way through high school. Yeah, a 6th grader could read these, absolutely. Not too thick, pretty good. So a 6th grader all the way through high school. Let's talk about each of these books. So when there are books that are in the series, I like to read the books in order. So first is Crossover, then Booked, then Rebound. So Crossover is about a 12-year-old kid who's in middle school. He has Jan. And this book is about him and his brother. And their names are Jordan and Josh Bell. But they're like beasts on the basketball court. They're excellent at their game. They go through their schooling like a normal middle school kid. So Jordan meets a girl at school, and his friendship, his brotherhood with his brother starts to unravel, So as the game of basketball and brotherhood start to intermingle into their lives a little differently, then they have to figure out that life is not given to you in a playbook. You have to work hard at relationships. You have to work hard at your game. You have to work hard at making things happen for you. And no one's going to give you a playbook and tell you this is how you should do every single thing. So they have to figure that stuff out separately and then together. By the way, these books are written in verse. So it's like poetry. Okay, so that's what verse means. It's written like poetry. It's still a novel. It still follows a storyline, but the way it tells you the story is so beautiful. So this is an awesome way to bring in poetry and explain that everything doesn't have to rhyme, and there's something called verse, and you can explain to them what that looks like. And maybe in the middle or at the end of the book, you can have them explain their thoughts by writing their own verse in terms of what's going to happen next, or what they think about each character, or do a compare and contrast of Jordan and Josh in verse. So this is a really nice book. The next book is called Booked. So Book follows a 12-year-old middle schooler soccer player. And this book is about the sport of soccer. It's about family. It's about love. It's about relationship. And it talks about the fact that this character named Nick, how he learns the importance of words, how power is in the tongue, as he struggles with facing a bully at school and also trying to figure out, how do I ask this girl out that I really like? So this book is very heartwarming and it is full of energy. Love it. Now let's talk about Rebound. So Rebound, well, before I say, let me just flip through so you can see some of the pictures and some of the way that novels are written when they're written in verse. But this book here is about a guy named Chuck the Man Bell. Chuck the Man, D-A, Chuck the Man Bell. And it talks about before he became, Chuck the Man Bell, he was the proud father of Jordan and Josh Bell, the two characters that we learn about in the book Crossover. So Charlie is a kid. Well, let me explain. This book doesn't talk about his adult life, but it talks about the fact that he too was once a kid in middle school, right? So before he was who he was a kid who dreamed of basketball glory. He also wanted to be an NBA star. And in his mind, he can steal, he can jump, he can dunk, he can make a crowd go wild, just like a regular NBA pro baller. But tragedy strikes. Okay. Question here to Charlie is, will a series of mishaps keep him benched in the game? Or can he learn how to rebound? Pick up and start again? Can he persevere? Can he keep pushing? Can he, continue with his work ethic and continue with his drive, even if bad situations take place? Or are you going to allow what's happening at home? Are you going to allow what's happening at school? Are you going to allow what makes you upset at the moment stop you from reaching your ultimate goal? So this is a really, really great book too. These, again, like I said, are great for your middle schooler. You can start at, 6th grade, but it's really great for 7th, 8th, 9th graders. Awesome, awesome. But again, if your children are like my son, the book doesn't matter. My son reads elementary school books. My son reads middle school books, and he reads high school books, and he reads books that are considered for adults in college. Of course, the content is appropriate. However, the only challenges that a student may have if they're reading books beyond their age is maybe a vocabulary word or pronunciation of a word. But those are quick fixes that you can work on as they're reading. Okay, so don't allow the age group or the target market for a book stop your child from reading that book. As long as it's appropriate, hey. I think I already talked about these 3 books in my book haul for elementary students, but I wanted to just mention that these books are also wonderful for middle school students as well. So Black Panther, the Young Black Prince, this follows 12-year-old T'Challa as he is in Wakanda, this advanced nation. 12 years old, middle school student, outside of Chicago. He sends them to the United States, and they're like, what is this? What is this? So they're like, where we come from, everything is so advanced and so like out of the ordinary, to we're coming to here. So if you remember in the actual movie, Black Panther's, I think it was his cousin. I don't know if it was his friend or it was his cousin, so I'm not sure. But M'Baku, the story begins with M'Baku being on the south side of Chicago, in an apartment there, and you learn that he was sent there for a reason, and then he ended up having a family and stuff there. But this story here follows, how did M'Baku get to that south side of Chicago, and how did Black Panther, was he ever there? Did the movie ever mention that he was there? Not sure. But this book follows the storyline of what happens before they're all grown up. So this book is really great. I think it's a wonderful precursor to the movie. Have them read the book and then watch the movie. I talked about this book in my last video about Clayton Byrd. He loves to play his blues harp with his grandfather. His grandfather passes away. His mother bans him from playing Clayton. His mother bans him from playing that blues harp. And he's like, no, like my life is going to end. I need to play my blues harp, not only because I love playing that instrument, but because it reminds me of grandfather. So this is really good. And this here is a graphic novel. It gives you everything in the area of science, from STEM to different parts of the body, to physics, to chemistry, and it breaks down each of those fields of science, and it goes into specific topics like matter, like energy, and so forth. So this is great for an elementary school, middle school, and high school student. It's awesome. Look right here too. 12 Brown Boys. This is definitely for your middle schooler, and it follows 12 African American boys and their various stories, from relationship to family to school to issues that a middle schooler would encounter. And it not only talks about their stories, but it talks about how they overcome various situations. So this book here is supposed to, help your child find themselves in someone that's studious, someone that's funny, someone that is, athletic, someone that's talented, someone that likes science, someone that likes music. So this story again follows the lives of completely 12 different types of African American boys. And again, it tells you their story. This is actually a really, really great book. I would not only say this is for middle school, I would say go ahead and push this for a high schooler as well. Wonderful, wonderful story. Now let's talk about your high schoolers. These three books are definitely for high schoolers. Okay, and let's talk about each one. First, let's talk about Fly Girl. This book here, hits so many areas that you can get into. You can use this in your history timeline of events. If you are studying World War II, you can also talk about African American history. From that angle of being African American, you can talk about African American history in the fact that some people who were so fair in skin color that they could pass for white and what passing means. You can talk about that. You can also talk about U.S. history when women didn't really even have the same advantages, whether or not you were black or white. Women in general just didn't have the same advantages as men. So this book can dive into all those areas. So this book is about a young lady named Ida. Her father was a pilot and she would fly with him, on his adventures. And she realized from a young age, I want to be a pilot. However, when her father dies, she soon realizes that one, as a woman, two, as an African American woman at that, the sky is off limits. Okay. So during World War II, America decides to create WASP, WASP, Women's Air Force Service Pilots. And she decides, I think I want to do this. But still at that time, Black women were not a part of the WASP. It was for white women. Ida had to make a decision. She had to decide, am I going to use my fairness, my skin color, as an advantage so that I can pass for white in order to join the WASP? So this book is about courage. It's about love. It's about the discrimination that Black people were faced with, even when wanting to fight for the country. And it just shows that there were people who took advantage of the fact that they could pass, and they used that in order to enter different sectors of the military and in different sectors of business in the world in general during that time. So this is a beautiful story. I think, again, you can have your high schooler read this and you can have so much dialogue about all the topics that I just brought out to you. Oh yeah, one more thing that you can talk about is the fact that she is giving up. What does it mean to give up your identity, to give up your family, to give up your history in order to reach a dream? Is it worth it? Should you do it? What are the pros and cons to it? This in itself, you can even create a debate topic with between you and your high schooler. And if you have multiple students, let's say you have a middle schooler, a middle schooler can read this book. And I would say an 8th grader can read this book. And you can have great debate, great conversation surrounding so many different topics. Okay, let's move on to the next one. This here is called Black Count. And I'm not sure if you knew, but have you ever read the book, The Count of Monte Cristo? The Count of Monte Cristo. I know I read it when I was in high school and I watched the movie as an adult. But did you know that The Count of Monte Cristo was actually African? So this book follows that. So for me, I would, I have a whole video coming out about the whole classics and what makes a classic and who said it was a classic, because a lot of these classics that are out there, my household, my children will not be reading them because some of them are just boring. So I look for books that I can use and create our own version of classics. And this is absolutely one. Although The Count of Monte Cristo is actually a pretty good book, the storyline is awesome. The movie is great. So we'll probably, still read that version and watch that movie. But this is one that he's going to read first. And then we're going to have dialogue between why it was unknown, what was the events that surrounded that. But anyway, so this book, General Alex Dumas, and He was actually born in Saint Dominique, which is now Haiti, and it follows his story. So again, if you know about the Count of Monte Cristo, this is going to be very similar, but from a different perspective, from a different lens. So again, this is a great book for you as the adult also to read. All these books that are for high schoolers, I think adults should read. Me personally, if I'm tying anything to history, I'm going to read it first, or we're going to read it together as a read aloud. But yeah, so great book, Black Count. One more little fact. His son, Alexander Dumas, the author of The Count of Monte Cristo, is also the author of the original Three Musketeers. And he used his father's life and his father's stories to write those two novels as well. Now, this book here by Homegoing, this book here is great, okay? This is the book I would tell the parent to read first because it is such a great book. And it's a book that you can do so many things with in terms of compare and contrast, character analysis. You can pull out conflicts from each one, and you can do an Annie chart with that conflict. And I'll put a video somewhere in a card that talks about how we do our Annie, A-N-I charts when we're talking about persuasive and argumentative essays or when we're doing debates. So this book takes place in Ghana, 18th century, where two half-sisters are born in different villages and they are completely unaware of each other. One of the sisters will marry an Englishman and lead a life of comfort. But is it really comfort? And the other sister is captured in a raid in her village and then imprisoned and then sold into slavery. But here it is. She's imprisoned in the very same castle that her sister is in. Okay. So the book Homegoing, it follows the parallel paths of each of these half-sisters, and each of the chapters is about their descendants, their children, and it goes through 8 generations. So from the Gold Coast to the plantations of Mississippi, to the American Civil War, to the Jazz Age of Harlem. This book is so good, and it illuminates slavery, the troubled legacy of slavery for those who were taken and for those who actually stayed. And it shows how the memory of captivity has been inscribed in the souls of these descendants. Man, guys, this book is really, really good. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you found some new novels that you can bring into your library. If you have any books that you want me to read and you want me to do a review, hey, let me know. We enjoy reading. All right, guys, as always, you be blessed and make it a great day. Bye.
Bye.